Hey guys, thanks for hanging out with me today. What I want to talk about is rifle scopes, and in particular rifle reticles. This video is going to be aimed towards the newer shooter or newer hunter getting into the sport. They're looking to put maybe their first optic on their rifle, or maybe they have a few lower end optics and they're thinking about spending $400, $500, $600 on a mid-priced quality scope. What I want to base this on is specifically on reticles, and I'm going to go from a manufacturer that I'm pretty familiar with, that I think does a good job in the optic world, and that's Vortex. There's such a wide array of different scopes and different reticles that it may get confusing. There's scopes on the lower end that cost $100. There's scopes on the higher end that even cost $4,000 or $5,000, $6,000, and then there's, especially with Vortex, there's a big clump of scopes in the middle that are all quality scopes. You get a lot for your money. They have all the features of the higher end reticles, the higher end scopes, but they're still affordable. So plus their customer service is second to none. They're great as far as I'm concerned. What I did was I wrote on a chalkboard here and I broke down four main groups. This one here kind of ignore. Four main groups of four styles of reticles. You got a basic duplex reticle. This would be a BDC reticle. This over here would be a mil dot or a hash reticle. And then this one here would be kind of a newer, like a competition type reticle with or referred to as like a Christmas tree reticle with wind holds. This is newer, but I'm sure you're going to be seeing a lot more of this style reticle in the future because it's kind of the hot thing right now. I guess the first thing to ask yourself is, what are you going to put the scope on, and what's the effective range of the rifle that you plan on putting the scope on? Let's use the basic duplex here to start with. I would say that this would be a perfect scope for a hunter, and I think most hunters have used this scope for maybe 100 years. It's probably the oldest reticle that's ever been around. On a 3-9 or something like that, on a 30-30, it'd be perfect. Even a 270 or something like that with a 4-12, that would still be good too. Most hunters that I know zero their rifle scope at 100 yards. They don't want to shoot past 100 yards because they don't feel confident in themselves. When you buy a scope with a reticle like this, typically you don't have adjustments on the turrets to make corrections for bullet drop. This is just a straight up, basically just an aiming point with magnification. This would also be a good reticle for a 22. Maybe you want to take your grandkids or your son or daughter down on a Sunday afternoon and shoot cans or whatever. This would be a fine aiming point to shoot smaller objects with a smaller caliber. And what's good about these scopes is that they typically come in second focal plane, which means when you zoom in the magnification, the reticle stays the same. It doesn't get larger with the magnification, and that's important. So that's a duplex reticle. The next one here is a BDC or a bullet drop compensating reticle. Typically they use this in war. They use this in 3-gun. And what it is you would zero for 100 yards, and then you'd have your 200, 300, 400, 500. Some even go out to 800 yards below. And basically, if you want to shoot 300, you put the 300 yard marker at your target and take a shot. Typically when they make these scopes, I think honestly that's the only way they do them, when they make the BDC reticle, they're designated to a specific rifle. So this scope when you bought it would say 223 on it, or it'd say 308. Those are the only two that I know of. There may be more. And then the scope manufacturer actually gets a little more carried away and kind of pushes this reticle farther away from being usable by putting a speed on it, as far as I'm concerned. What that means is they'll say this scope reticle is going to be accurate at 3,100 feet per second. Well, that's fine. I mean, you can go to your local Walmart or a sporting goods store and read the boxes and find ammo that will shoot at 3,100 feet per second or right around there. And you can buy up quite a bit or whatever you think you're going to use. But if you go back into the store to buy more ammo the next time and they don't have any, you're going to have to go with a different type of ammo or a different manufacturer, which may have different speeds, which is going to throw this reticle completely off. Same with a 308. They make a 308 reticle. And I think these reticles are basically aimed towards, this is what the military would use. The reason why this works good for the military is because they have large contracts with ammunition makers. They have contracts with the scope manufacturers, and they can create the scope and the ammo to make it work for them. So they spend some money in the military. That may be a good optic for them. I know Trigicon makes it with the bullet drop. It may look a little different, but when I think of a reticle like this, I think of somebody, maybe you're at war, somebody's hiding behind a stone wall at 300, 350 yards, and you're just going to aim at your 300-yard marker. You're going to start lobbing bullets in. If you're short, you're just going to hold a little higher. If your wind's left or right, you're going to Kentucky windage it left or right, and you're going to walk the impacts in until you either flush them out or you make contact. I would honestly stay away from a reticle like this. Another negative is if you buy this for a 223, you can only use it on a 223. You can't switch it between rifles. It's designated to one rifle. So I'm not a big fan of the BDCs. That's just my opinion. Some other people may have great luck with it. I have no clue. The next one here is what Vortex calls the Ebr One Reticle. It's a mil dot or a mil hash reticle. And once you start getting into reticles like this, they would typically come mid-price, maybe $400 even, and you could get something that's accurate. They start making the turrets. The turrets would match the reticle, which means that this reticle turns into a ruler. So if you take a shot and you hit up here, all you have to do is put your crosshair at your aiming point, or even move your crosshair to the impact point, and measure over and measure up or down. Make the corrections with your reticle or with your turret. Take your next shot, and you should have impact. If not, you could just, if you hit over here somewhere, you could actually hold this dot and move this dot down to the target, take a shot, and you'll make impact. Once you start getting into this, it opens up a whole new world of options. It's like cameras. A little point-and-shoot camera gives you the ability to take pictures, but a DSLR gives you a whole lot of more options to be creative and to make the pictures the way you want to make them, or take pictures the way you want to make them. It opens up a lot of doors. That's what this reticle does. This reticle can be used like a BDC reticle. Instead of having yardages marked, you would just have, if you're shooting 400 yards and you're shooting a 6.5 Creedmoor, maybe your hold is 2.2 mils. So as long as you know your bullet drop in mils or MOA, you can use this reticle like a BDC reticle. You can also use this on any rifle you want and any caliber you want. It's going to be consistent with anything. So if you shot and you hit over here with a 22, you can still do the same adjustments with your turret or move the impact to where you want it to go and take a shot and it will hit. It doesn't matter if you're shooting a 338 or a 22. It will be correct. This would be good on a 22 or a 338 shooting at a mile. I mean, this kind of takes this and puts it into one. Then you start getting over to like the Ebr 2C reticle, which Vortex makes. It's basically the same reticle down the middle. My drawing may not be 100% accurate, but you get the point. So it's this reticle down the middle, and then it gives you all these little dots here. Those little dots are wind holds. And I'll give you an example of how this reticle failed me last year. It wasn't really, it was just the stage that I was shooting at that made it close to impossible. We went to a shoot in Massachusetts. We got up to the stage, I forgot what number it was, and the range officer told us that we had 3 targets set up, one at 415, one at 603, and one at 950 something. You're allowed to dial on your turret to calculate for one of those yardages. So if I dialed for 900, I could have held center for 900, but then I would have had to hold under for the 600 and the 400, which seemed kind of confusing because if I did anything, I would hold over. I'm not used to holding under. I dialed for the 400, I would have held for the 600 and the 900. That day, though, we had some pretty good wind at like 15, 20 mile an hour gusts. So what happened was, my 400-yard hold was the center, my 600-yard hold was down here, my 900-yard hold was over here, but we had wind that day, which was blowing, I can't remember if it was left or right, but what I had to do was hold over here to take a shot. and we were shooting off a roof pitch or rooftop like a prop, and I was shaking like a leaf. I had a backpack for as a positional bag. I wasn't set up very good that day, and I was holding over here in dead space. Dead space, I had nothing to aim at. I was like looking for leaves or rocks or something on the grass over here to give me an aiming point to be consistent and make a couple hits in a row. And I blew the whole stage, and I was leading the match. I think I was in second place, and I was down by like 1 point into going into first place. I ended up by bombing that whole stage, and I fell all the way to the bottom of the pack. And I realized that this reticle did everything I needed it to until I started getting up a little bit higher into the competitions and shooting with better shooters or range officers who were making the stages a little more challenging, that this reticle failed me. You could always dial that if I had the ability to dial for the yardage, I could have dialed for each yardage and then held the center line here for wind left or right, and I would have had an aiming point like here or even over here. I could have used that center stadia line for my wind, and I would have brought my impact to the center for each different yardage. But they wouldn't let that happen. So that was the first time I seen that reticle fail me. Then after I left there, I said if I want to get good and if I want to compete with these guys, I need to get a reticle similar to this. This is like a Christmas tree reticle. A lot of manufacturers make similar reticles. They just changed it up a little bit. This is basically the same reticle here down the middle and up and down, but it gives you these little dots. These little dots are 1 mil, 1 2 mil, 1 2 3 mil, 1 2 3 4 mil, and it matches up with the yardage, and it basically gives you hold. So if I had to do the same situation I did here, and I had to come up 900 to shoot here, and I had 15-20 mile an hour wind, it would have given me an aiming point over here to actually have something to aim with. So this scope reticle would have helped me out a lot better, a lot more. This reticle here is a combination of this one, and this one, and it's basically a good all-around reticle. After I bought this reticle, the only downside to this was after it's perfect for steel or competition. Me personally, I like to do a lot of load workups with different rifles, and I like to shoot tiny groups. It's just like a little a habit for me, or a hobby, I guess you could say. And what they did on this was in the center of this dot, in the center of the crosshair, they left an opening. So if you were shooting at steel, your steel would fill this up here, this box, and you got the opening in the center is not going to affect you. If you're shooting small little groups, your target is basically inside of that. I don't know if you can even see it, but your 1 inch dot or your 1/2 inch dot would be inside this opening, inside of the reticle. These reticles come in front focal plane. It comes on their higher end scopes. So when you zoom in, the reticle gets larger, which makes the opening in the center of the reticle get bigger. And if you're shooting fine aiming points, it's not going to be ideal for you. So like Vortex normally does, they listen to their consumers, and I'm assuming they had a lot of people complain about the reticle with the opening in it. So what they did was they came out with an Ebr 7 reticle, which is their newer style reticle. It's still the same up and down, little changes here and there. But what they did was in the center, they gave you an actual aiming, a crosshair in the center, and then they gave you the gaps on the sides. So they basically filled the center in with a crosshair. So if you do want to zoom in and aim at small targets, you still have the ability. You got the wind holds, you got the mil dot or the hash reticle. It's a evolution of all these reticles in one. So that's just my quick breakdown of these reticles. A lot of manufacturers make similar stuff, so this isn't like specifically just the names here are what I used of Vortex. But these reticles in general, a lot of manufacturers do the same things. They just make small little tweaks. Me personally, I would stay away from BDC reticles unless you're going to get up into the higher end, $1,000, $1,500 like the ACOGs or something like that. Those may be a little more flexible with different ammo and stuff like that. I'm not sure. I don't have one, but so this is just going to sum it up. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comment box. And if you like what I'm talking about, give me a thumbs up or subscribe to my page. I appreciate you guys that have subscribed, and makes me feel like I'm not sitting here talking to myself. So thanks for listening, guys, and have a good night.